Imagine your first breath filled not with sterile hospital air, but with the roar of chaos along the Ganges. One more soul, among 1.4 billion people fighting for space. Your father hauled bricks, pulled a rickshaw, or took whatever brutal construction job appeared. Your mother scrubbed floors in wealthy homes or sold scraps from a tiny street stall. You were one of 6 kids, a perfectly ordinary Indian family. No clean nursery welcomed you, just spice-heavy air, endless honking, and an overwhelming crowd pressing in from every side. So here's the grim truth, friend. Your life began in nightmare mode instantly. Your parents managed to care for you until roughly age 2. After that, you were mostly on your own. You grew up literally on the street, eating, bathing, and relieving yourself on the roadside, because hygiene simply wasn't a priority where you lived. In dense neighborhoods like Mumbai, homes are packed so tightly that sewage pipes are nearly impossible to install, and there's rarely even a square meter for a proper toilet. Clean water is scarce in many regions, and old beliefs still hold that keeping a toilet inside the home pollutes it, pushing people outdoors instead of toward modern plumbing. Somehow you survived until age 5, already a street veteran, because earning your own money wasn't optional. Your parents simply couldn't support you any longer. So you chased tourists through traffic, reading strangers like radar, who had cash, who might show pity, who would kick you away. You had no other choice. Your country's economy is complicated, not struggling on paper, but its people certainly are. India currently ranks as the world's 4th largest economy, even surpassing Japan. So why does a nation rank that high stay filled with poverty? Because the population is massive. The pie is huge, but the number splitting it is even bigger. Most national wealth sits locked with monopolistic corporations and a handful of billionaires, roughly the top 1% controlling the lion's share of everything. At 7, the system shoved you into a crumbling government school with 80 other kids crammed in one room. Education here isn't about nurturing potential. Its real goal is just enough basic knowledge to keep you from becoming a lifelong burden on the state. Nothing more ambitious than that. On paper, literacy sounds impressive, around 80% nationally by 2024. But that number swings wildly, over 96% in wealthier southern states, below 70% in poorer, crowded ones. The real issue is quality. Being counted literate here just means scrawling your own name and stumbling through one simple sentence. That's enough for the government's books. After barely a year of school, you were back on the street. At 8, a baby sister arrived. Another weight landing squarely on your shoulders. Girls are treated as economic burdens from birth because of the dowry system. Families must hand grooms enormous sums of cash, gold, even vehicles when daughters marry. So a daughter's birth rarely brings joy, only panic over savings. Girls are rarely educated. They cook, clean, raise children, and are often married off by 14 or 15. For a poor family, a child isn't a mouth to feed. It's a future pair of working hands. And more kids mean more income and a kind of informal retirement plan. So you had to shoulder whatever responsibilities the system handed you. You were only 8, but in India, you don't need to grow up first to start working. Officials claim 10 to 12 million child laborers exist nationwide, but independent researchers estimate the real number between 40 and 50 million, nearly an entire nation's worth. At 8, you hauled bricks inside a scorching mine. At 9, your small fingers made you perfect for weaving carpets. At 10, you moved into auto shops, fixing and painting cars. You worked hard because you weren't irreplaceable. Your country holds thousands just as sharp and skilled, ready to take your place the moment you slowed down. That old phrase about priceless Indian silk actually traces back to real history. Muslin once wove so fine that legend claims entire garments could pass through a ring. European royalty once paid fortunes for these fabrics, but colonial rulers reportedly had skilled weavers' fingers severed just to kill the competition and protect British mills. By 15, you'd learned a trade, though skill barely mattered, quit today, and dozens of desperate workers were already waiting outside to replace you by morning. You dreamed of your own shop but scouted cheaper spaces across different states, discovering along the way that India recognizes 22 official languages and nearly 20,000 dialects. Cross into a neighboring state, and you might feel like you've entered another country entirely. By 18, scraping together every rupee, you finally rented a tiny shop of your own. Your tools weren't the finest on earth, but for customers who could never afford new, your repairs were the closest thing to their dreams coming true. India remains one of the weakest countries in purchasing power. Luxury cars and flashy gadgets are pure fantasy for a child born at the bottom of this system. Turning 18 also meant voting rights, with elections held every 5 years and no requirement beyond an ID card to cast your ballot. One bizarre rule stands out. No voter can be forced to walk more than 2 kilometers to a polling station, so officials will carry ballot boxes up mountains for a single voter. So who would you actually vote for? India has over 2,500 registered parties, though only 6 hold real national power, and elections can list thousands of competing candidates. While most Indians survive on $2 or $3 daily, their representatives often hold staggering personal fortunes. Corporations fund campaigns, then collect contracts and tax breaks in return. This cycle keeps wealth locked inside that top 1%, no matter who wins your vote. Meanwhile, you somehow reached 21 without a serious workplace accident. Healthcare here isn't reliable. Even minor illnesses mean waiting in crowded hallways for treatment, and government hospitals, the only option for the poor, test your patients more than they heal you. Doctors are scarce and beds are scarcer. A simple checkup might take days, with patients sleeping on hospital floors just to hold their place in line. Turning 21 also meant reaching India's legal marrying age, where roughly 90% of marriages are still arranged by families rather than chosen through romance. In a country of 1.4 billion people, agreeing to whoever your family selects is simply the custom. Newspapers even run matrimonial ads specifying caste, salary, and skin tone. Caste touches everything here. Asia's richest man owns a 27-story residence worth billions, complete with helipads and hundreds of staff, while nearby sits one of Earth's largest slums. Your family had to solve the caste puzzle first, since intermarriage between castes is largely forbidden, and marrying outside your religion is often seen as staining family honor entirely. Hindu belief holds that your caste reflects karma from a past life. High caste rewarded, the lowest caste punished, religion essentially framing inequality as unchangeable fate. Even after clearing every hurdle, if your family can't afford the dowry demanded, the entire marriage can collapse before the wedding even begins. Weddings themselves often stretch 3 to 7 days, a display of wealth for the rich, but a crushing debt trap for poorer families borrowing from moneylenders to keep up appearances. A single celebration can chain a family to a loan shark for 20 years. Somehow, though, you made it through and started a new chapter with your spouse. Congratulations. Married life here often means weekend visits to local parks or temples with the extended family, and evenings wandering carnival markets full of India's incredible street food. Traveling farther usually means the train, roughly 23 million riders daily, essentially moving all of Australia's population on rails every single day, a system stretched far beyond its limits. Through all these routines, you safely reached 25, with your wife now pregnant, carrying a child who would soon inherit this same demanding world. On a cool February evening before sleep, your mind circled familiar worries. Rent for the shop, the cooking gas running low, the growing hole in your shoe. And with those quiet questions drifting through your thoughts, you finally fell asleep, carrying an entire nation's struggle into your dreams, just as you had every night before.